welcome to Meet the Candidates. The Frankfort Plant Board has let us come here to the studios to invite the candidates to come in and sit down with us and talk to us for a while, so we have a chance to get to know them as people and as candidates. And on this edition, I'm going to be talking with Sherry Sebastian. She's running for a position on the Fiscal Court from District 1, and we're going to find out a whole lot about you, Sherry. And I want to start off with letting the viewers hear a little bit about who you are and what your function is within the area, and why in the world you decided you were willing to accept a responsibility of this weight.
Well, those are great questions, Janet. And first I want to thank you, and I want to thank Cable 10 for giving all the candidates the opportunity to come out and share information so that the voters can make an informed decision on May 22nd. It's very important that they hear what everyone has to say. So as for myself, my name's Sherry Sebastian, and I am a candidate for 1st District Magistrate. Now, 31 years ago, I made a conscious decision to move to this community right after graduating from Western Kentucky University. I had a passion to serve the public, and I thought that this would be the best place to do that, not only to start a career, but to make a life and build a family. So my parents are originally from Breckinridge County, so they grew up on small farms. So the early part of my life was on a small farm, and then we moved to the big city of Litchfield when I was about 10 or 11. So I got a taste of city life, but you know, my roots are in that small, small family setting. I am married. I've been married almost 23 years to Michael Moore, a native Frankfort individual with a large family. We have 4 daughters, Meredith, Melissa, Tiffany, and Morgan. Our 3 oldest have their own families and their own lives, but our youngest, Morgan, lives with us and attends Bondurant Middle School. We are parishioners at Good Shepherd as well, and the benefit of being someone here from Frankfort, and I'm so fortunate in this with my husband, he was able to take over his family business that had been in business here for 65 years, small business, still going strong today. Now, you ask a question about what kind of drove me to this. Now, I have a passion for public and community service, and I have a long history of both. So I think that passion was able to express itself. One, I've held leadership positions in state government. Currently, I'm a state government retiree. And in those positions, I had to be able to analyze complex issues. I had to work with people with differing viewpoints, and serve in a fashion where when people did have differing viewpoints, to try to find common ground, try to find a way to collaborate, and then bring that information to the public so that it's out there in the open and give the public the opportunity to communicate in that regard as well. Now, as far as the community service I've had here, for 18 years I served on the YMCA Board of Directors, 3 of those as president, 2 as chairman of the board. I was on the PUSH board for 6 years here, 1 as president, 1 as chairman of the board. I was in the Frankfort JCs, a community service organization, for 10 years, 1 as president, and then 1 as the state vice president for the Kentucky JCs. For 16 years, I served on the Leadership Frankfort Board of Directors, and I was the panelist that handled the Government Challenge Day. So questions about government came to me for 16 years, and I probably had between 200 and 350 people go through that process to learn about government from me. I have been the recipient of the Business and Professional Women's Club Woman of Achievement Award. I'm also the recipient of the Golden Rule Award for Community Service here in town. So I think, I bring, a passion for those things, but I'm passionate about other things as well. So some folks may know me as a performer in several bands around town. So I sang with the band Toe Jam, I sang with the band Twist of Fate, and I also perform with the Sherry Sebastian Duo. And then others probably have some history with me if they've been to the Y and taken a class or some of the other facilities here in town. Because I've taught everything from kickboxing to aerobics to spinning to boot camp and being a personal trainer. So on top of that, maybe some of the experience they've had with me has been a lasting experience. So I think I've touched the community in a lot of different ways, and people may know me from a variety of aspects of being in the community. The district that the 1st District serves, let's talk about kind of some of the geography of that. So a 1st District Magistrate would serve the area with 8 precincts. in those 8 precincts, let's visualize and start at the Kentucky River right along the 2nd Street corridor. Let's wind our way through South Frankfort, kind of buffered by Ewing and Paul Sawyer, head up around the Capitol through Tanglewood, and then we're going to come through Thistleton, and then we're going to come through Cloverdale, so we're going to encompass Collins Lane School, and then we're going to work our way out the 127 corridor, and we're going to take in Green Wilson Road, a portion of Evergreen, some of Cardwell, out where I live off of Nineveh Road, right down on River Valley, Mills Lane, and Big Eddy. And why would I have a passion to serve? I certainly have a passion to serve. You know, I made a conscious decision to move here to the seat of government because the passion of community service, public service burned in me, you know, when I was 20, 21. No better place to do that. And then, you know, having that passion, that spilled over into serving the community. And I can tell you, I think that serving as a magistrate, that is the ultimate form of community service here for our residents. And I look forward to it.
That's what I was wondering, was why in the world you were willing to tackle a responsibility of such immensity on top of everything else that you do.
Yeah, I am busy. I hear that. I hear that often. But I also understand, and I appreciate the adage, it takes a busy person to get things done.
It does. And I want to especially explore what you think are the issues that are facing District 1, not just District 1, however, because as a member of fiscal court, you're also going to be part of making decisions about issues countywide.
Right, that really is a good question. So issues of District 1, I guess the primary thing I would have to bring to you today, Janet, would be infrastructure. I think one of the largest challenges we have across our community is infrastructure, and I'll probably start with roads. Many need resurfacing, many need widening, and I can tell you from District 1, from traveling this myself, the first mile of Evergreen Road needs immediate attention. Residents who live there have known that for years, and that'll be certainly something I would advocate for very strongly and very tenaciously. But also there's safety issues with a lot of our county roads because they're just not wide enough. I live off of the Nineveh Road, and I've been down Wash Road and a lot of other variety of roads out in that area, and they're certainly just not passable. They are small, very narrow, windy roads where 2 cars just of a regular size have a difficulty in passing one another. So when that happens, typically one tries to get off the road to allow the other to pass, but there's not even a shoulder to get off on. So a lot of times people, you know, could possibly damage their cars due to these, you know, smaller, narrow roads that we live on and drive every day. But I think it's even bigger than roads because infrastructure here takes in a number of things, especially out in my district. The Farmdale Sanitation District was formed to absolutely tackle a very long-standing problem, and this is frankly a health and a safety issue as well, outside of the roads, because you know you want to have sanitary sewers that are actually working and processing waste so that it's not backing up in your yards and not in the neighborhoods where you live. And so they've done an admirable job, albeit a really tough job, where they've had to roll their sleeves up and sit down with city officials, with county officials, pull state government officials in to try to find funding, because this is not a short-term problem. It is a long-term problem that will take a long-term solution. And it will take a variety of people being at the table, being creative, even to the point of pulling in maybe federal contacts that we might have so that we could reach out and find funding opportunities to pull money in that would begin to address the problem. Everything from design of a facility, you know, now that we've got the land purchased, all the way from design through the processing of the waste and pulling in all the groups. I mean, there are 7 small package plants out there. The way I understand it, Huntington Woods would like to join in this collaborative effort. And so there's a variety of neighborhoods, a large amount of the population that's going to be impacted by, you know, these folks that are on the sanitation district that have decided, like I said, to roll their sleeves up and absolutely get knee deep in an issue that has been a long time in coming, and it will take a long time to take care of.
Well, as you have indicated, the budget is going to have a lot to do with how much you're able to accomplish and what types of things you're able to accomplish. And I want to divert this just a wee tad here. one of the things that's been in the news most lately is the pension crisis, and it's going to whack that county budget significantly.
Absolutely.
Do you have any thoughts on how we can come to a resolution of dealing with our county budget after it's hit with this big impact?
Well, you know, one of the things that I also wanted to bring up, and you've shared with us, is the stress and the pressure on the county budget. Right now, just for existing services, there's stress on the county budget. And for example, you know, our road budget, it's just a little south of $3 million. But that need, you know, the need is more than the resources that we have. And we find that across the board. So for example, with the state pension system, and you know, it is an important issue to this community, and there's almost, at this point, no more important issue to this community for a variety of reasons. We have state individuals, you know, state workers who are in the pension system. You have teachers who are in the pension system. County health department staff is in the pension system. County workers, city workers. And here's the thing, I'm feeling the same issue. I'm in the pension system as well. I am a state employee, was a state employee, and am now retired. So it's important to me as well. So some of the things I've done is reach out to the local legislative delegation to share my thoughts, my concerns. I've attended forums that they've held to reach out, and I think that is critical that people do the same as I've done. Reach out, march, talk, call, make sure their voices are heard, because you know, the community's voice is the most important one in any conversation. It's not necessarily the leaders. They are acting on the voice and the will of the people and trying to advance that. But as you said, it's a stress on the budget, and it puts considerably more pressure on our budget. For example, the actuarial analysis that I have been made privy to at this point demonstrates that $1.2 million more annually will be needed by our county just to work with the current employees that are in the county system. And I met with Judy Mattingly, and you know, one of the things she was talking about with the health department, for the same level of service provided by the same staff, they were going to have to look at increasing the tax rate for the health department potentially somewhere between 2 and 2.5%, just to maintain the current level of services. So we can certainly see that that is unsustainable given our current resources. And what that would mean is if we don't have economic growth and more people moving in, all of that current level of services is you and me paying for that. And so if we can find a way to have economic growth in our community, that's going to share that financial burden, that financial stress, and the financial pressure across a number of other individuals, whether it is new businesses moving in, whether that it is the growth of small businesses that we currently have and we want to see, whether it's new residents coming in saying, I want to be part of this community, because services cost money. County services cost money, and we can already tell that those costs are only going to increase. Nothing stays stagnant because we want more services, even though if we try to keep the current services at the same level, they're going to cost more. They're just going to cost more. Mm-hmm. And so we need to find the way for economic growth, and how do we attract individuals like me who decided to come here and move and make a life here.
And that's something that I want to develop with you a little bit, is your thoughts on how we can go about drawing those in, whether it's individuals or businesses, and whether they should be large or small, that sort of thing. That's a whole area that encompasses a great deal. But one of the things that you mentioned early on is the fact that the first district encompasses areas that are not necessarily out in the Nineveh Road area, not out in the more open areas. They're within the city limits, mm-hmm. actually, and come under city purview. So I do want to ask you how you stand on the efforts to redevelop the Capitol Plaza area. Do you think, for example, that we should have something to replace that convention center, a multi-use facility, or should we go about finding a completely different way to develop that?
Well, I think you raise an important question. And, you know, I, like many people, went down and watched the implosion of the tower. And it was a mixed bag of emotions for me that day. I spent about 20 years of my professional career there working with rock solid state employees who made really good decisions and rolled up their sleeves to get some good work done. And so now that's down. And so we look at the convention center and it's on its way down, it's next. And the challenge there is, and I think this is a big challenge for a lot of people, when those decisions were made, those were not decisions and discussions that were out in front of the public. The public had no input whatsoever. And I think that is a critical, and unfortunately I'll probably characterize that as a mistake, because people have opinions and this is the heart of their town. That's right in the corridor where you come into our community. And not being able to have public input, I mean, what would a couple of meetings really cost us in the grand scheme of the time frame? And there could have been a number of ideas that came to the forefront, came to the table from our very creative community who has, knowledge and awareness. I mean, this is an engaged community. And I'm excited to be part of an engaged community. I went to the community conversation that City Visions had, and one of the things that was shared at that meeting overwhelmingly, 66% of the people there thought that the current leaders were part of the problem. They weren't hearing what the public had to say, they weren't valuing their input, and they weren't doing anything about their input. And I think that harkens back to the to the convention center. I think people felt like they were shut out of a decision that it was important, emotional, and from an economic perspective. And I think one of the things I want to do is ensure that people are at the table. I want to have meetings throughout the 1st District, scheduled meetings, at a time when it's convenient for people to come, so that I can absolutely hear what they have to say. The thing is, I am not going to sit on my hands at a meeting, and I'm most certainly a person who speaks their mind. And I have opinions on things. And I hear from others, and that helps shape that opinion. But I'm most certainly going to speak up and speak out for the residents of the district.
I'd also want to allude to another effort that's been in the news just recently, and that is the Frankfort Kentucky Distilled Branding campaign. That is working well for the city. Do you think the county should make an effort to incorporate that, to expand it, to use it for county efforts? You bring up a good point, because one of the challenges is Frankfort is synonymous, and our community is synonymous with state government. How often do we turn the news on at night and there's a reporter with a microphone and a crawl at the bottom that says live from Frankfort, and the first message they start off with was, well, in Frankfort today, poor decisions have been made on your behalf, and for the foreseeable future, you're going to have to live with those poor decisions. And then they close that with, again, we're live from Frankfort. Well, the challenge is that's not Frankfort that made those decisions. So making Frankfort synonymous with state problems and state issues is really a challenge. So it's admirable that the Chamber of Commerce and other community businesses, not just businesses downtown, not just the city, have gotten involved and said, how can we change the perspective of people everywhere about what our town is about? Because we have tremendous attributes here. We have the Kentucky River. That's not just downtown, it's in my backyard. I live on the Kentucky River. I see the beauty, and I think there's a tremendous opportunity for tourism there and enhanced tourism. But I also know that there are wonderful businesses throughout our entire community, not just the quaint shops downtown. But who can go, how many times have people been out to Daly's, out on 127, and they bring a treasure home, that may have been in their family for years because they want to keep that. And it's those small businesses that do a fantastic job of reaching out to our community that I think we need to support. But I also think a really unique thing that we have here is we do have some distilleries here. And I can just say from what I have read in the paper, Buffalo Trace has had, I think in the last year, 2017, over 200,000 visitors come through their doors. That is the largest cohort of visitors that they've ever had in the history of having tours at Buffalo Trace. So how do we as a community capture, while they're spending tourism dollars there, how do we weave them throughout our community so that additional dollars come out of the pocket and they're spent throughout the community, and that dollar circulates through our community
more frequently. And I think that's the key thing.
Well, sort of in line with that, but this came to me out of the blue. I'm not sure where this came from or why, but I was told to specifically check with fiscal court candidates and see what your stand is, if you have one, what your stand is on expanding the Sunday alcohol sales.
Oh, my. That's a interesting question, I'll put it, and one that if probably I wasn't a good old left fielder, I might not be able to address. But, you know, I guess what I can say to that is it is a difficult issue for many people. I think it's an emotional issue, and I think a lot of people see it as a moral issue. But I think we can really take that off the table. For example, any day of the week, I can choose to go to a restaurant if I want to and have a drink. I can do that Monday through Sunday. I can do that at Sunday as well. I can also make a choice not to have a drink if I want. So I think that takes that moral issue off the table, but I think what we need to do is reverse that and make that an economic growth opportunity, because it's a source of revenue that we don't have on the table right now that could again help dollars continue to circulate through our community. And I think that's one of the things we need to focus on. What are those untapped potentials for economic growth in our community? How can we tap those with the community voice saying, these are the drivers we want of the future, and make those happen?
Do you have issues that you want to particularly focus on before we finish our conversation here? We've covered a wide array, but only in general terms. And I am not clear on whether there's something I neglected to check with you about.
I don't know, but you know, one of the things that we talked about early on was infrastructure. And I know our community has, our county has a $3 million road budget. Well, the challenge with that is the need is going unmet. I can just tell you from my district out there, you know, there are roads again with no shoulders, there are roads that absolutely need resurfacing. But I understand that there could be initiative forthcoming from the state. And I think it's already taken a little toehold here off of 127 on the bridge that covers the interstate, where they did a bridge inspection and found some substandard construction there and some things they needed to shore up. So folks coming in the mornings most certainly remember that traffic lanes were cut down back in, you know, January and February, and it made it tougher for them to get to work. But most certainly for the safety issue, they want to address that. So I think that's not just going to stay right there. They're probably going to roll that out into the county. And I guarantee you, in this community, we have smaller bridges everywhere. I can say, for example, in Farmdale subdivision, I know there's a small one out there. So as they start to look at these bridges, and if they find challenges with them and say in some instances that they're substandard, one of the first things they'll do is reduce the weight limit for those bridges. The challenge of reducing weight limits for things on bridges is you could get that below where a school bus could actually go across that and get into a subdivision to pick up your children. So what they would have to do then is say, all right, the school bus can only go to this portion. You'll have to find a way to get your children to the school bus. Now, if you're renovating your home and you need a load of rock because you want to build a basement, a rock truck weighs between 35 and 40 tons. There's no way it's going to be able to go over a bridge. So that could impact what you want to do as a homeowner, could impact you as a parent. So I think there are potential things that we need to look at, you know, and I think one of the things that County Judge Executive Wells has presented, and I think it, you know, I haven't had a chance to study it yet, but I think it's something that could start a conversation. You know, he's proposed a 10-cent fuel tax. So I think there are things like that out there on the horizon that we do, as I said earlier, rather than having these conversations in isolation, where a handful of folks are in a room, we need to have a bigger conversation where everyone has the opportunity for input. And I think I'll push for that.
There are so many more issues that I know you want to get into, and we'll look forward to having an opportunity for you to explore all of those issues. But right now, I would like for you to look into that camera and tell our viewers why you are the best candidate for this position and why they should vote for you on May 22nd.
My name is Sherry Sebastian, and I'm a candidate for 1st District Magistrate. The election's coming up on May 22nd. I think there are 3 key issues here. I think I am a convener of people, and I want to hear the voice of the people. I want to roll up my sleeves and work with you, because I think your voice is the most important voice in any conversation we have about this community. The other thing is I think we need new ideas, a diversity of perspective, and new people around the table. It cannot be the same group. While that is a good group, we need more voices. We need more input. We need more people speaking up about how they want their community impacted so that it can be prepared for the future. And I think if we look for, future behavior patterns, and we rely on, conversations of the past, ways we've done things in the past, traditions of the past to make our future for us, we won't get there the way we want to. So what I want to say to you today is that I will be your full-time magistrate in the 1st District. I will be available to you full-time, and I'm the only candidate that can say that. I have dedicated myself to living in this community, and I'm available to you at all times, and I will be here at all times. And I'm going to have community forums, set up meetings so that you can come out and I can make myself more available to you so that you don't have to track me down somewhere to have these conversations with me that I think are important. So I humbly ask for your vote on May 22nd, and I'll do a great job of representing you in the 1st District. Thank you.
And we want to thank Sherry Sebastian for coming in to give us an opportunity to get an overview of who she is as a person and as a candidate. Stay tuned for information about the Candidates Forum on April 26th. Participate if you can. Send questions in if you have them. And then please make every effort to join us for live election result coverage on May the 22nd. We'll come to you from the county clerk's office. And in order for that to happen, you have to cast your vote. And to do it with as much information behind that vote as possible, make sure you come back here to meet the candidates.